Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, Assalatu Salam ala Rasulillah, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Thank you, my dear brothers and sisters who are here. And those who will show up in the future. I decided to do this talk, kind of like at the last minute. I have been thinking about it, but essentially because I had a lot of things going on. And so I decided I was going to go ahead and talk about this particular subject because it's a lot of talk about Kiswahili as the national language for the diasporans, Black folks. And rarely ever mentioned, or is mentioned, but is skirted over, is what about North Africa? It's part, but the people in it are a range of colors from very white to jet black in color. And all of them are considered to be Arabs. And they speak offshoot of Arabic, what they call Darija. I live in Morocco, and I've been here practically 16 years. And so I kind of have some, and the talk and the AU has pushed this language as well. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brother. Thank you very much. They are trying to do something to alleviate a problem, a colonial problem, a problem that has been manifest for hundreds and hundreds of years. Control Africa, its culture, its infrastructure, its languages, and so forth. And they wanted to make a point that these colonizers wanted to make a point by language and by artificial borders. It looks like I'm having a hard time in connections here, my dear brothers and sisters. Yeah, and so what is happening now is that the Arabs who live from Morocco across Egypt are involved in this, in the sense that you cannot exclude them because they're living on the African continent. And if you look at the Arab League and their definition for Arab, it's not designated by color, it's designated by language, not by color. And so you look at Senegal. Senegal is a Black nation, but is regarded basically as Arab because you have a lot of Arabic speakers, but they speak Arabic and also Wolof, Fula, variety of Mandinka. I mean, they speak a variety of different languages. So this situation, being the national language, is problematic to the Arabs who are living in the north. And we have to look at, you say, well, yeah, why should that be? Well, let's look. He, in this present state today, he rarely ever regards himself as a African. He regards himself as Arab, or sometimes or English, and sometimes not even Arab itself. And we saw now that and we are in a position now that we see this. And I live in Morocco, as I said, which that is foreign to them. They have not even readopted the classical Arabic language anymore. They're now speaking an offshoot of the classical Arabic language. Arabic. Classical Arabic, Quranic Arabic is understood everywhere you go, but it's not spoken by everybody. It's understood, but it's not spoken. You see the problem we start with, which is offshoot of Arabic. It's part of Arabic. It's very, very close to Arabic, and it was formed by Bantu and Arabic, and it was a trading language when the Arabs began to come develop trade language, and this is how we came up with Kiswahili. And so you see this situation that we have. I'm having work to disrupt this situation. My program, I know this was going to happen because just as I was about ready to start, I saw that they were there. Thank you, my dear brother, for letting me know. I hope this thing gets rectified here. I also like to say that it's used as the national language. Salam alaikum, my dear sister Amina. I believe there may just become a split where we'll have two versions of it. And we'll have a northern version of it, which will really carve up the map, because the Muslim states might go ahead and say, the Black Muslim states might say, look, they join in that, with the northern tier and become a North African Muslim state. It'll be Africa, but it'll be a Muslim declaration. Catch. What about the language if this happens? Because they are saying they will not adapt to Swahili as the national language. And then this problem will evaporate. If you look at a map, I wanted so much to show you, but if you look at a map, you would probably start to carve out Africa from Guinea-Bissau. You go north. Now we're talking about the Senegambia region. It's Black and Arab, but they speak Arabic. And then you go across the tier and you cover all of the north, and you hit the northern parts of some of the other Burkina Faso and so forth, all the way to Sudan. So anyway, this is a situation that would carve up the northern part. Now, since they would push, the AU would say, this is the distance of the north, because the north is in transition now from even being Arab and even being Muslim now to being equivalent to like what I call like African Americans, United States. The African Americans are not white per se. They're not African either. They have developed their own, and they look more of Africa, but still they don't associate with Africa. They look kind of white as well, but they don't really associate with the Tuba. This is what's happening. They are starting to get away from being quote unquote an Arab, and they are developing a culture that is a mixture, and there's goes the generation move away from Islam. It's even gotten worse. They've adopted the genre of the United States and Europe and so forth. This is the problem, and so I like to say that the problems associated with the declaration like this will be hit home when the Arab states begin to fight and to argue against this. And the scholars on Islam, especially that of North Africa, will be very, very upset about this. Very, very upset. And I don't know how they will rule. This is something that I believe they would, and they would get the proofs from the Quran in itself, because if you look at Surah Arabic, it's chosen, not Swahili, not any other dialect, but this Arabic, Quranic Arabic, and he tells you in this particular verses in there, he explains it directly to us why this language is chosen. So you now ask the scholars to go again. we have Swahili as a national language, but we're not going to speak it unless we go into Black Africa. And you're going to have problems. And so when the Black Africans come up north to Libya, to Algeria or Morocco, they're not going to be speaking Swahili. You see the problem? And then they're going into Tanzania or they're going to Uganda, they're not going to find Arabic. They're going to find Swahili being spoken. You see? So I foresee this problem. I'm going to have a large hit because of it. And in this beautiful surah, Subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us very, very clearly here. He says this here. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ameen. Wa kitabi mubin. Inna Qur'anan Arabiyyan la'alikum taqilun. Right here, he said, I'm making things clear, and I'm making it clear in Arabic. This is what he says here in the Quran. The scholars will use this. The Arabs, the African Arabs will use this. They'll say, now, let's ask a question here. What is the national language that we use if we want to say hello, welcome? When someone, don't we? We don't have one language that we use that you can go into South Africa, except the European languages, English mainly, and French. This is adopt. I agree that Black Africa should adopt Swahili as a national language. I believe that. Will it fly in North Africa? I don't believe it will. I believe it'd be extreme resistance to it. Because again, the African Arabs African. They live on the continent, but they don't consider themselves to be Africans. So they're going to be resistant to adopting a language that they feel belongs to Black Africans. But you got to remember something. They are now even resistant to the language I just spoke here on the Quranic Arabic, which is a classical Arabic. They're even resistant to that now, which encompasses many different languages. So all of a sudden, here's come a representative from the AU coming to all the governments of North Africa and telling them, look, you will now teach it in your schools. It's going to be a war. It's going to be a war, my brothers and sisters. They're resistant to it. They're arguing even now by taking French out of some of the countries. From classical Arabic, okay, the schools, even for the young kids. So we have a problem on our hands that have to be solved. Some of our most brilliant leaders are making the problem even worse by making generalizations and making comments against two factors. One, Islam, and the African Arabs, which at this time they should not do. Because if you want somebody to understand your position, you don't talk about their religion against their religion and talk about their racial makeup, which they're Arabs, but they're African. And if you look at their DNA, significant amount of the DNA is what? Black African. That's right. Mostly, mainly from West Africa, stretching from Nigeria across to Senegal, they have Black African. And they cannot claim to be white folks, Tubabs, but many of them do feel that they are Tubabs. And so I think, my brothers and sisters, you're getting where I don't know what, because I've only prayed on this and I asked the question, how are we going to approach this subject? How are we going to push one national language when you have a set of language that should be adopted, but they're going to be resistant to it? Then you have the other part where you have the Black Africans themselves. 60% of Africa now is Islam. It's growing, and it's growing faster than anyone. And we know the Tubab Americans are trying to stop it, but it's growing very fast. The language of Swahili is not at this point. Again, you see the problem. How do you introduce this now into areas where the Black Africans are speaking? You tell them to come to grasp Swahili. They may not have the capabilities of adopting to perhaps this type of language. In event that they have to read from the Quran here, their religion, not through Swahili or English or Latin, through Quranic Arabic. This is the problem that the Muslim, especially the African Arab, and so I don't know what the solution, but I hate to hear some of our most prominent leaders talk in a sense and talk against what is happening in North Africa and against Islam and against the African Arabs. There's some truth to their arguments, and both have complained against the other. The Arabs and the Africans have complaints against the African Arabs. Both have legitimate complaints. They do both. But how do you get that together? How do you get them to the table to bring this language? Because we have to do this, my brothers and sisters in Africa, because it's got to the point where we want to open up, but some of us speak different tongues. Places I prefer not to speak English. You understand what I mean? These are colonized languages. We should get away from that. You heard some of my speeches before where I talked against it. I said that the Black in America and those in the Caribbean and so forth, they should adopt some African dialect. And I've stressed Swahili because of the ease and the melodic nature of it. And also I look at it from a standpoint, Swahili are sisters and brothers. They are. If you look at the writings, if you look at the Swahili in Arabic script, you have to look at it good because it looks like it's Arabic when in fact it's Swahili. I say again, we have a problem that no one's talking about. We have some of our leaders, and I love her a lot. She's the mother of Africa, but she made some ill-advised comments one time about Islam and about the Arabs in the north, and I think it was untimely and it was unwise. And I make mistakes, but it was untimely to make a comment like this, especially when this person is regarded as the mother of Africa. And so I want to make sure that we don't have together, and we have too many divisions in it. And one of the divisions is the North. We know that. And the North is a problem. We know that. And the Northern tier considers the Southern part to be this lingering problem has gone on not just today, but many, 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 many decades. So if we push Swahili, think about that, my brothers and sisters. What is going to happen? We're going to have resistance in West Africa to being told that we cannot speak Fula anymore, or we cannot speak Mende, some dialect, Ibu or Hausa, even though Hausa is very close to Arabic. But we're going to have resistance. But the real resistance is going to be to the north. When suddenly the Arab leaders, the African Arab leaders stretching from Morocco, Mauritania, across to Chad, Sudan, all the way up to Egypt, and then you tell them that the national language is going to be Swahili. I wonder what's going to happen at that table. Even though they're diplomats and even though they're heads of state, I just wonder what the conversation will be, because they're going to ask, what degree of Swahili should I introduce, and how I'm going to sell this to my public when my public are African, and their law and what governs their lives is the Quran. And the Quran is in what? The Quran in Arabian, as I just read to you. And now you asking them to teach this. We still speak Arabic in our schools, even though it's a daraja, but it's still Arabic. Now, how? How are we going to introduce the Swahili to take over the Arab who speak Arab? And then you tell them now they're going to have to change. These are the problems we have to work out. Now, someone will say, look, we have Arabs in Kenya and Tanzania. Yes, you do. And I saw who live in Tanzania and live in Kenya, they speak Swahili, and they gave the khutbah, the Friday prayer in Swahili. I saw that. We're not talking about those who live in, it's not a Muslim state. I'm talking about the northern tier. They don't speak any other language for khutbahs here. You go to any of I'm from Morocco stretching to Egypt. None of the khutbahs are given in Swahili or Spanish or any other language. They're given in classical Arabic because the scholarly class speak what? Quranic Arabian. That's the language I learned. I didn't learn the Darija. I learned the hardest Arabic. This is what is spoken by the scholarly class. What's going to happen now? When you have a meeting with them and now you tell them they're going to have to adopt Swahili when they're trying to get the people back to speak, which is very difficult. And now you're going to ask them to also speak a Black African tongue, which is Swahili, which is, even though it's mixed. But remember something, Arabic is an African dialect, is Asiatic, is originating out from this continent. So it's not a European language. We know that. And so no one talks about these factors that I'm talking about now. They skirt over it. They keep talking about this. And I asked Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, I said, whoa, wait a minute. How about the African Arabs? What is their position going to be? So I'm hoping I make sense to some of you guys what I'm saying. Seeing some comments here. Okay. I'm hoping that we will look at this and we'll have further discussion, because now I see on YouTube, we have brothers and some sisters are talking good about this. And so they skirt over North Africa, or they make disparaging remarks about North Africa, Islam, and Arabic. See, that makes the problem even worse. Talking about right now, I haven't heard anybody talk about this. And it's as though it's taboo. We should talk about it because those northern tier states are part of Africa too. And their DNA is stretched there. Some things that's very funny about this. We've been talking about DNA. I just got back some crazy results from another DNA company. And I got significant from Morocco all the way to Egypt. Isn't that something? And I'm a Black man, but this comes from my mom's side. My mom was very, very light skinned, but her DNA is, is something else. I'm shocked. As a matter of fact, I can say a little bit now, even Nelson Mandela, can you believe that? I have the same makeup as he does and his family. My mother, that was on my mother's side. I'm related to him. But on the same token, can you believe this? This is the best human beings, Nelson Mandela. But I'm one of the worst human beings in France I'm related to, and that was King Louis VII, I believe it is. Can you believe this? That's in my heritage. That's on my dad's side. So I got the best of human beings. Point to say, don't look at the Arabs there as Europeans, even though some of them are light-skinned. They are significantly African in their DNA makeup. And there's other scientific about that to designate and, this type of thing. But anyway, they are not Europeans. They may have some admixture, but they're not. So we have this problem. One is national language. I agree. Do I agree that Arabic should be it? No, not at this time. But should Swahili be it? Yes, I agree to that because I believe it can be mastered. But the problem is, what about people like myself, Muslims? What's going to happen there where we're fighting to preserve the Quranic Arabian? We're fighting to preserve that. And how we're going to bring it back to the Arabs in North Africa to start to speak away from it. Now, how do we introduce Swahili in that mix when they're running away from their own national language, which is the Quranic Arabian? You see the problem we have? And so this is, please feel free to say something about this. I made a comment to my brother, and I'm hoping my brother does something about this program too, because it should be talked about. We have to talk about this to bring the Africans born in America, to get them to adapt Swahili. That we know that's a problem in itself. We know that's a problem. You're going to have resistance to this, but they're not going to flying, and you got people running around you that's wanting to take your life. It's very difficult to really think about things like this, but they have to consider that. So now we have the diaspora Black people who speak French, English, and Spanish. They're going to try to adapt Swahili. It's going to be a hard sell, because we have even African Americans who are black as the night will tell you straight out they don't want to have nothing to do with Africa, even though their face and their color Africa. They'll tell you they don't want to have nothing to do with it. You go to that person and you tell him, hey, let's adopt Swahili. He's going to laugh with you. He said, no, man, I speak English. We have that problem. Now you see, you bring that to Africa, the same thing. I'm Arab, they'll say. I'm Arab. I don't speak that language. I speak Arabic. That's what they'll say to you. And many are in denial that they're even Africans. And we have a problem here in the North, because they consider themselves to be Arab and Muslim. So if we can't get them to come to Quran and Arabian, how can we get them to come to Swahili? Very difficult. My brother says, I agree with the importance of Arabic for the Muslims. A national language doesn't mean we cannot speak our native tongue correct. Yeah, Ghana, you got brothers who speak different languages there, okay? So Fanti and so forth, you have different languages, and they're going to, where we draw the line when we go to Ghana, and how do we draw, when do we introduce Swahili there? And what capacity will we use that in trade language or in everyday language? I mean, how do we incorporate Swahili, and how are we going to enmesh it into the population? These are the things, logistics we have to work out. And so I'm hoping that we can get this problem worked out, but it's going to be a long time coming, because we have serious problems. Every other week there's a coup happening. Somebody's having their government overthrown by the population. So we have a lot of problems that we have to solve. And language is something that's on. We should put that idea out there now about Swahili. Can it go? Is it viable? Yes, it is. But what about in the North? I don't believe at this time that we can push it, get it. I just don't see it. I cannot see it, especially what I see in North Africa today. I cannot see it. That's a stumbling block. It's going to cause further division, because we already have this split between Black Africa and Arab Northern Tier. We have this split already. And so this, when we hear the talk of Swahili being as a national language, you're going to have even further resistance, and we're going to have even more of a clash between the Black. That's what I'm looking at, my brothers and sisters. That's just my idea of it. I can also see a split transforming. I can even see where the African to be pushed away, I mean, from Africa and have their own states where they still call it Africa, but it'll be called, I don't know what they would call it. At a map, I can see this happening. And it's going to put even a fitna on the Black African countries who are Muslim, who do speak Arabic as well, and other national tongues. Black, yeah, be in a tough situations when the African Arab brothers, Muslims, come to them and say, "Hey, you in Gambia, you in Ghana, you Muslim. When you go to your khutbah, you speak Arabic. You with Swahili when you are a Muslim and you speak Arabic." Are those Black African countries like, again, Gambia, Guinea, Conakry, see, and then going across the desert, what's going to happen? They're going to be forced to choose between their black brothers over here to the east or their Arab brothers to the north. There's going to be problems to this. There's going to be problems. Which way do they go? And there's some Muslim states. Do they take the Arabic and go up to the north and say, okay, we'll have our state carved out along with the other Muslim, I don't know, Africa, Islamic state. I don't know what they would call it. I can see that happening. Maybe some of you may disagree. That's fine. That's okay, because this is why we debate and talk about this. But far, thought about this situation. But I understand what my brother Abodi is talking about. It's true. We right here, he says, I don't see any issue with North Africa or any other African nation being resistant to Swahili speaking language. Well, yes and no, my dear brother. You know, again, when you live here, you know, I can attest to something. You know, I don't speak the Darija. I mean, speak it. I speak the Quranic Arabian. They understand me when I speak it. So, and how are we going to introduce Swahili when they are resistant to the language? Brother, this is what we find out. And I've always raised this issue in North Africa. When I went into Egypt, and you know, I had made a comment to somebody. When we speak Moroccan, Egypt does not understand this language, nor generally speaking, the Moroccans don't understand the Egyptian Darija as well. The only common language that we have is the Quranic Arabian, or say in Arabic. If you speak that, it's understood all the way across West Africa. So, my dear brother, if we try to introduce Swahili when we're having a problem, even going back to the original Arabic, how push this in this type of situation. This is what we have to talk about. We have diplomats, and our scholars will weigh in on it. I'm talking about our Islamic scholars will weigh in on this topic, and they're in as they should, because they'll have to go and hit the books here and ask the question about that. Is it feasible for them to do it? Now, the African Arabs in Zanzibar and Tanzania and other places like that, they speak. They don't have that problem because they have adapted. But those to the north have not adapted, and they will be resistant to adapt it. When they don't even want to even speak the Quranic Arabic, how they're going to be made to speak Swahili? That's going to be very, very difficult. And they may ask for a cession, meaning they may want to move away from the you know, Africa per se. They'll still be in Africa, but they'll ask for their own state. You know, so I don't know how we're going to solve these problems, but hopefully, and Subhanahu wa Ta'ala knows best, of course, with his wisdom. But we do know Islam is growing tremendously, growing faster like a wildfire through. I mean, it's going through everywhere from the north to the south. I mean, not from north, but from West Africa across to East Africa and down to the south. Black Africans are coming to Islam in droves. Now you even adapting Arabic language. You can go just about anywhere now, especially among the Muslims. You find people speaking Arabic. That's right. So it's starting to grow. And now we're going to introduce Swahili too. So I don't know, my dear brothers and sisters. I thought about this. I'm hoping that we have the answers. I'm hoping Subhanahu wa Ta'ala give us guidance on that, on how we can solve this particular problem. Because we have to include making Swahili the language of Africa. We just can't exclude them. As though they go away. They have the vast part of, you know, they have a massive landmass. How can you forget them? How can you just part of them? They're not discussed. Everyone just either bypass them or talk against them and move them out, or they just don't talk at all about North Africa as though it don't exist. We have to talk about it, because how can you introduce these in this national language? And they have to get their approval as well. So this is how I see it, my brothers and sisters. How you doing, my dear brother? Evil scholar standing by. Okay. Salaam alaikum. Yeah, I tell you, we got a big problem on our hands. We got, and I'm hoping Subhanahu wa Ta'ala gives us, this guidance. And I'm hoping that even all of us here, we talk about this and we will have perhaps solutions to this problem. We got to do. In Africa, we have one common problem. I don't care if you're in the north or to the south. We have a two-bob problem. They're still controlling the assets, the infrastructure, and the culture, and they're still keeping us divided. We have on ourselves. We're starting to push the French out slowly but surely. We start to remove them out, but we still have the American influences, and now we have the Russian influence, and we have now these outsider governments coming into Africa and making, rubbing havoc through us, roughshod through Africa, doing fueling revolutions and so forth and so on. So it's a myriad of problems that we have. I don't know how we're going to do it. Our brother's here. He said the Black Africans' books are spreading like wildfire. What books are you talking about? I don't understand. African books are spreading like wildfire. But I don't know. You guys can write me and tell me what your thoughts are. How can we incorporate the African Arabs in this? How can we push this topic without any, without derogatory remarks and so forth and so on and hate? We have the Arabs, the African Arabs who hate Black Africans. We have Black Africans who hate the Arabs because many Black Africans look at the Arab and say, you and your ancestors, the one enslaved us and so forth, or, they, so forth. The African Arabs look down on the Black Africans as being inferior, not in color, but in culture and in governance and so forth and so on. A hate of some sort has developed for a long time between us. And so I don't know how we get past that, because we have to find a way. The only way I can see we can get past who speak the language and understand the culture and are Muslims as well, they can come to talk. Because you can't get a person who's juju, who's practicing obeah, who's practicing like his time is, and you kind of bring him to the north to talk to a Muslim. That's not going to work. They're going to look at you and say, hey, man, get out of here with that. I don't want to hear you. I can't listen to you. I don't practice obeah, or I'm not a Catholic. We have a myriad. You got to talk. You got to have somebody to come to the talk. You have to have brothers who speak the Arabic language, who are Muslims, to come to the African Arabs and talk about it. It's got to be a selected group of people. You can't bring people who have hatred or who has made comments on YouTube against them. They're not going to listen. That's why I was kind of taken back when our beautiful sister made the North and about the Arabs. It was ill-advised. I hate to hear that, because she cannot be part of the problem, because if they say, whoa, why you bring her here to talk to us here in Egypt when she's made this comment? And how, and I look at myself, because I live in the North. I speak the language, and I live here and I practice Islam, but I'm full of, see, I have all that blood in me. See, so I'm in the North, but I have heritage to the South as well. I have heritage to the North, and I speak. And I see it from my perspective, because I'm sitting in the North while others are sitting in the South and sitting in the United States. I see the problem because I hear the talk, because I'm here in North Africa about the rumblings about Swahili, and it's not good. It's not good. And when I hear my brothers to the South talk about the introduction of this, perhaps they have strong feelings to about that. So how are we going to solve that, my brothers and sisters? We got to find a way. We got to find a way to do it, because we all, if we're going to remove the two Bob and we're going to get him out, we got to find some other way. We got to do it. We have to get together first and solve our own internal problems before we can throw out the two Bob, because the two Bob he has, because why? We're not together. We have artificial borders that was set up by the Pico, I forgot what they call that, when they divided the racist colonists, and they still keep us strong, I mean, in hate against one another. They say it's a security issue. We're not supposed to be able to go to each other's country unless we have a two Bob who cannot come in. That problem's got to be solved. So I don't know, my brothers and sisters, what we can do to solve this. And I'm hoping that you guys think about this and you come up and say, yes, Islam would clean this up. Islam would. It would do it. And I'm hoping that our brilliant scholars and our men of knowledge get involved. Christian brothers and brothers who practice juju and us, and those who are in position, we can talk and see what we can do, how we can bring a national language where we can be understood. We have to find something. It's about time for us to do this now. It should not be English or French or German or Russian. Those languages are not they're not our language. We have to have it in order for us to be right. In Japan, is Swahili, Lingala, or Hausa being spoken? No, it is not. Their national language is what? Japanese. They have one language. Yes, it's not the same language. Yeah, there's English spoken there and probably French a little bit here and there, but the main language, everything written on the keyboards, everywhere is in Japanese. You see what I mean? So this is what I'm talking about. Now we have French and English being used as a lingua franca of Africa. It should not be. So we have to figure out something, my brothers and sisters. And to be honest with you, I don't like it. I want to be able to have Morocco into Tanzania, I'm understood. If I step into Zimbabwe, I'm understood. Not through the English language, through some African dialect. This is what I'm hoping for in the future. I don't know about you guys. I want to see some African dialect as the lingua franca of Africa, which should be adopted, and we speak that everywhere we go. And I believe this is feasible. Do it. That's another problem. So, my dear brothers and sisters, thank you for showing up today. And I'm very close to Salat Maghrib, and we have some understanding, something how we can to alleviate our problems here in Africa, and what we can do to make it great, and create a atmosphere where we can induce our brothers and sisters to travel here once and for all. But right now it's going to be difficult. One, language capabilities. Secondly, when you turn on I forgot what NBC, I can't think of it. MSNBC, yes, and ABC, you see coups happening in Africa. The brothers sitting in LA say, man, I thought about coming to Africa. Man, look at this, another coup. He wakes up, he goes to work and he works himself, and then all of a sudden Monday come around, there's another one. That's a problem that's happening. And some of our brothers don't want to come here because we have a lot of turmoil. We just have a myriad of problems, brothers. And now we adding Swahili as a national language. That's going to be another problem, another fitna that's we put on the continent. When we have the others, we have African, we have Russians and Chinese running roughshod through the country, and Americans behind the scenes, they're doing their thing. I mean, we have a lot of bad actors here. Know how we're going to solve that. And Subhanahu wa ta'ala in his wisdom will solve it, because I know by the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, in his words, he said, we know it's going to happen. We know that there's going to be one that because he's told us that. And so whatever our prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, has said is going to come to pass, because everything he said in the hadiths about the end times has come to pass. And so we know that we could be the governing factor around the world, so much so where there will be no injustice around. And this is what the hadith said. I believe that. I believe what the prophet said. Figure out, because we're not close to that time yet. I wish we were, but we're not. And we have to figure out something, how we can solve this problem, my brothers and sisters. And so I'm hoping, again, that we'll talk about engage in this subject, because I believe it's worthwhile to engage in this, to ask the question, but engage it in a proper sense. But if we're going to have these forums, we can't go with unnatural hatreds and start to tell lies. Like we have that. We have it both sides. We cannot have that. We have to be realistic. The Black Africans have done things in the past. The Africans use each other because both have sinned. Both have done things wrong. We can't bring up the past and use that as a vehicle to keep us disjointed. We have to bring to what we have today. How can we get together on that? Not bring up Sierra Leone, this is what you did. And not go back and say, hey, you're Moroccan, this is what you did. This is what your forefathers done. We can't do that. We got to get away from that, my brothers and sisters. So I hope you see the dilemma, and I'm hoping that your words, my brothers and sisters, for this. It was spontaneous. I got to thinking about it, and I prayed on it. I asked Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. He gave me some guidance on it. And so I decided to talk a little bit about that today. And those who showed up, my brother here, Abodi Amina, and brother Uwa, and those in the chat, and those who look in the future, our brothers and sisters, ponder what has happened today, what we have, this thing, or we should not, what should we do about the African Arabs in the north? All those things you think about, and those who have the platforms, talk about this subject, okay? Please talk about it, because it's important. We got, please do this. Don't take this as some fancy, because it's not. It's serious business. When you got segments of power, we just can't slide over this. So, my brothers and sisters, thank you for showing up on this, Saeed, and my other brothers and sisters. Thank you for showing up, and those that look at this in the future. Happy. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, irrespective of what you see on TV. Generally speaking, as Saeed probably tell you, and my other brothers and sisters who live here in Africa, generally we walk around here in peace. More peace than I did when I can walk around in LA. Because after a certain period of time, brothers, you can't walk around there unless you got a gun. I don't have that problem here. I don't need a gun to go walk out in the street or something like that. I don't need it. We have a beautiful society here, and this continent can be made beautiful. And I think it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. We got the word from our prophet, and I'll leave it at that. So I'll leave you, my brothers and sisters, with the beautiful